Okay, welcome everyone to the Flux Dev meeting for August 28th. Um, let's get started. Who would like to go first?
Matthias?
Cool, I can go. Um, well, so just before I start with the topic, I put on the document, um, just a quick update about a pull request that I opened. Um, Stefan asked me to implement proxy support for image repository in image reflector controller. And the PR is out already. Actually, he already approved it, so I marked you there, Sonny. I imagine that you saw it, right?
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah, that one was a quick one since it was just copying the same thing from OCI repository. So, yep, there's that one. Um, by the way, I thought that one was gonna be for Flux 2.5, but turns out that we want to release it into Flux 2.4 because it's part of completing support for proxy across all the APIs, I guess. That's what Stefan mentioned. Um, cool. So that's it about this one.
Wait,
And
we
sorry.
didn't had like a discussion about such a thing like proxy across everything. If we do, I think we'd need something similar in customization and release as well. Because if you have multiple tenants,
Mm,
maybe each
mm.
of them would like to have their own proxy through which hand
To,
release is not reaching.
to talk to the Kubernetes API for the deploy.
Maybe they are
Yeah, I don't
already
know.
inside the cluster.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that we have not discussed about all the places that we may
Yeah,
have
yeah.
missed
Yeah,
if
I guess you're
proxies
right.
needed. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure if we
Well,
can guarantee in 2.4 we'll have 100% proxy coverage.
yeah, maybe for source APIs, then maybe that's what he meant, I guess. Or like, you know, just for things that are sources. Yeah. Well, yeah, but you're right. We maybe should have a more thorough discussion about this. Well, but that's what he said, so well, the PR is out. Cool. So yeah, that's it about this. And the other thing is Stefan also asked me to work on this issue about the Microsoft Office 365 connectors being deprecated and so this means that the MS Teams provider for notification controller is gonna stop working at some point. And it seems like the replacement thing is this um workflow created from this feature called Power Automate. Like where, if I understand correctly, like it's some kind of drag and drop automation kind of thing that you can build. And one of the things you can build is like an incoming webhook, just like the one we currently have for MS Teams. And but it has a different payload from the one that is currently implemented in the MS Teams provider. So I think the idea would be to create a new provider with a different name, maybe called adaptive cards or something, or MS adaptive cards, because this payload format is not, it seems to be not just for MS Teams. Like you can in Power Automate, if I understand correctly, you can like create incoming webhook endpoint where this payload is going to be sent to, but then the actions taken after receiving this webhook are like a customizable thing that you can build with this Power Automate thing. And one of the things would be forwarding the payload to MS Teams, to like an MS Teams channel or something. So I started trying to like, just open up, like create some accounts where I could test all this, and that's where I got blocked. Like, I I created an account and like I'm now trying to purchase the product Microsoft 365 Business Basic. There's a trial of 1 month, so I don't really have to pay for anything. But the thing is that it just doesn't work. I have already reached out to Microsoft support for, support on getting this purchased and being able to test the integration. Like, dude, I just want to, build some basic workflow, like just the basic thing that we need, and see if I can send, I don't know, a curl to the webhook and see if that works. Then I can, get into the code and like write a new provider and everything and then test manually. But I'm not able to sign up for this for the required Microsoft products to do this right now. So I was wondering if I could like maybe just look at the documentation of the payload and like write an initial version of the provider and like release a dev build in my account and ask for the issue authors to test. If you know, would that be a good idea?
So we have a release candidate tooling in notification controller. It need not be from your personal account. You can use
Oh,
Flux
cool,
itself. But I think
cool.
it's like if we cannot test it, what can we do? Have to ask people
Yeah.
who have the infrastructure for that.
But I mean, I should, I, it's just like when I try to sign up, I get a blank screen, like a blank model screen in the middle of the website, and nothing happens. But then like actually I got a development on this. Like the support told me to try a private window without cookies and anything. And indeed, if I do that in a private window and keep staring at the blank model for a while, after 1 or 2 minutes, it becomes actually a window of, my with the brand of my card and bank and everything trying to purchase, like to I telling me to confirm the purchase and everything. I do that in my app. The model sees it, like, and it detects the confirmation. It closes, but then I get an error about the card was able to be verified or anything or something like that.
I have had several issues with Azure payments. Even I had some tickets open with their support, but recently it's been fine. But a year ago, I also had many issues with paying them, Azure
Yeah,
or Microsoft
like
Bank.
yeah, when I did the feature for when I was testing um the proxy with the Azure bucket, I was able to create an account in Azure, like the Azure cloud, right? Everything. And like I had a problem with the card I was trying to use at first, but then I tried a second one which worked. So I was able to succeed. I didn't have to pay for anything. They just wanted a card and confirm that that card was real or something like that. And the
They do a
second
small
card,
transaction.
yeah. They like also refunded the transaction and everything. So the card worked for Azure. And I'm now using the same card for because this thing is not Azure, right? What they're the topic of this issue of this feature request is not Azure, it's um Microsoft 365.
365.
Yeah. Like it's like something else. But I was thinking that the same card should work for this as well. And in this case, like the error that I got from the first card for Azure was about the the card couldn't be like a debit card or like
Prepaid
prepaid.
card.
Yeah, prepaid card. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was using. And then I switched to a credit card and it worked. But so this time I'm using the same credit card. I'm not even trying the prepaid card, which is actually a debit card. Um, and so the error is different, but I get it's not about being the card being prepaid or not. It's just like verification failed
Hmm.
kind of thing.
I
Try
think I
again
had
later.
similar issues before.
Yeah. So
So sometimes like they would say it succeeded, and then after a month when I am trying to pay again, it will say it cannot verify.
yeah. So yeah. Well, I tried my best, I guess. And so I guess I'll just look at the documentation and write something that makes sense according to the documentation and ask somebody to test it, I guess. Cool.
So wait, I wanted some details. I was reading the issue comments. Stefan was saying we can change the underlying implementation, keeping the existing MS Teams provider. And then
Y-
somebody, I did not read completely, they were talking as if cannot do it. Can you describe what's happening? Can we not reuse the same provider and change the underlying implementation?
Yeah, we could like, I guess we could, it would be possible to replace the implementation of the current provider with the
Mhm.
new payload because it seems like MS Teams accepts both. However, the thing is that this payload is also compatible with other things. It's not only for MS Teams. It's something that would work for other things. It's like I said, I think the thing is this Power Automate product um, has like this feature for receiving an incoming webhook. But then where this gets propagated to is like a lot of things you can choose. One of the things is MS Teams. But it could also propagate the same thing to somewhere else, I guess. So the idea of having a new provider would be to be more
Or
the provider
generic?
would yeah
Okay.
more generic, because like the payload is compatible with other things. And also that's what
Okay.
Stefan said in private in a DM. So even though there's this comment where he suggests replacing the current implementation of the current MS Teams provider, in
Mhm.
the DM yesterday, he said this thing about maybe this should be a new provider instead because it's not only targeted to MS Teams.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. But if this will stop working in October, can we do something before that? I'm not sure.
It's you mean it's too close?
It's already September. We'll do a big release in September.
Yeah.
Introducing a new provider, I'm not sure we can do it in 2 weeks.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe you're right, but like what Stefan asked is that this was if this would, we need to address this before the next release, which is 2.4. Yeah. So I would love to have him here right now.
So you can try maybe. Maybe we can maybe it's
Yeah,
very simple.
yeah. I
But
mean,
again, I think
but
reviewing takes time.
yeah, and also the odds are like, especially because we can't test it, right? Like yeah, I think the odds are against us in this case.
Or if it's okay to delay the release by 2 more weeks, then we can do it. Fine. Maybe release it in first week of October with all these things. Then we can do it, I guess.
Cool. Okay, I'll try to work on a initial version today. And um how this the thing you said about our release candidates, how does that work?
So if you go to this is notification control. notification control repository and go to Actions tab. On the left side, there would be, I think, release action. There's a release actions on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
You see it?
Mm-hmm.
If you open that, there is run workflow on the right side. If you click
Mm-hmm.
on run workflow, there is a pre-filled text box called preview.
Mm-hmm.
So by default, when you run this, it will create a preview image, which is kind of a RC or test build that you can distribute to people. So this will trigger a build from whatever branch you select. You select
Oh,
your
okay.
pull request branch, and then you look at the workflow logs. At the very end, you would see it's pushing those images. So you just take the
Mm.
image names and use it, give it to people.
Cool, cool. So I just have to choose. So I just push a branch to this repo and choose it in the run workflow window. And
Select the
I
proper
don't
branch.
the branch I pushed, right? And I don't have, I guess I don't have to change this image tag prefix, right? I
I
can
think
keep it as preview
it'll add the git sha of the commit it's
at the
building
end
from. So you don't have to do.
to
That's
change
my
that, right?
guess because that's what I've seen before. But verify looking at the YAML of that workflow.
Cool.
But that's what it's actually doing. I think that's what it does. Else there will be
Cool.
conflict.
Cool. Sounds great. Okay. Thank you.
And regarding the image reflector, I maybe next week I'll
Hmm.
review because I'm too busy with or too involved in the Git OIDC thing. We'll talk about it next.
Cool.
So let's talk about Azure OIDC Git repository login. So we have pull requests. It's in the meeting notes. Pull requests for source controller and uh, package Git changes. Um, and we have some another pull request which uses these changes in our test environment integration tests. So I've been reviewing all the details about what do you change in your Azure account and Azure DevOps account and your cluster to be able to perform workload entity login to get access to Azure DevOps from your cluster. Yesterday I tried it and some things were missing in the documentation, but after I was talking to Deepti, who's contributing this, and eventually it was working properly. So I think we have all the documentation we need, and these documentation will also should be added to source controllers Git repository spec docs because that will be the user-facing docs to show people what they need to change in their Azure DevOps and Azure account. How do you link them? There is a linking from Azure DevOps and Azure account using Entra ID, and then it starts working. So we need to document some of those things as well. Um, so I'm testing if it actually works, but we still need to review the usage of all these in source controller. So the source controller PR introduces a new provider field in Git repository spec. So now it only supports Azure for now. When it's set, uh, I noticed there is some differences how we configure this workload identity or contextual login in OCI and Git because of historic reasons about how OCI login was implemented. I wanted to discuss in this meeting how we are doing it. Maybe we need to change it in the future. So in case of OCI, it originated from in the image reflector controller code base. And the initial implementation was such that you don't specify the provider name in the spec of the object. You just enable it in a, as a controller level flag, say enable AWS contextual login or something for Azure. And then looking at the image address or the repository address, the controller will itself figure out where it should attempt to log in. Is it Azure or AWS or Google? But later, this was because initially the image reflector controller didn't have such provider per object provider field. Later, when we added OCI repository in source controller, we decided to have per object provider field. And we moved that code from image reflector for OCI login to package repository so that it can be shared between source controller and image reflector. Now, the old code still has the same behavior where it tries to figure out where it should log in based on the repository address. But that was because of the assumption of image reflector. But when you come from the other side where you already have a provider field, you don't need to parse the repository address and try to figure out if it's Google or AWS or Amazon. So the new Git API has a different way of doing things. You expect the provider to be passive looking at the URL and trying to figure out what to do. So should we change it? I think we can, but which one is better? Should the controller itself figure out, or should it be more explicit? So I want to discuss what do we do. For
Well,
now, for Git, I think we should go with explicit.
so you're saying like Git repository prior to this change has a logic for detecting what provider
No,
to use from the URL? OCI.
OCI
OCI repository has it. So what you want to discuss is the behavior for OCI or for Git repository?
Git repository, but it may also affect OCI. Maybe the user-facing, the way user interacts, it won't change, but the thing that happens in the background may change.
So right now, Git repository like doesn't have this logic of detecting what provider to use from the URL, right? It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Cool. And I see that the pull request is adding the provider field and everything, like there's generic in Azure, right? Okay. And OCI repository has this logic, but also the provider field.
Yes.
So does this logic run even if the provider is not the generic one?
If the provider's not generic, so you can have the provider set to AWS and the repository can be GCP, and it will try to log into GCP because the detection code will prefer that instead of the provider that you provided in the spec.
Is
I think
that how
that's
it works right now?
I think that's how it does work now. But I don't think anybody does that. Why would you do that? If you're running in GCP, you'll
Yeah,
set it to GCP or generic. There's no
yeah.
reason you set it to AWS.
I
So
mean, like,
maybe the OCI login maybe should change.
yeah, like I think, like, you know, if I were, I mean, from a user perspective, I think I would prefer the provider field controlling this rather than having a detection logic. I don't know. And so Git repository would be just like that, right? After this pull request. Is so on. So if we were to choose this, then I mean, if we were to remove this logic from OCI repository, I'm not sure if we would want that, but if we wanted to keep it just like Git repository, then we would probably need a new version, I guess, right? A new API version.
But I don't think there will be any user-facing change. I think the expected behavior is to work properly instead of trying to internally figure out where to log in. I think that's a flaw in implementation.
So you're saying if we just remove the logic, what's our suggestion exactly? Like, what would you want to do?
Do what the provider field says instead of trying to figure out using the URL.
Just do what the provider field says, and drop the detection
The
logic, right?
detection thing, right?
And would you just like remove it from OCI repository without changing the version?
I don't think there will be any change because we don't expect the ideal workflow of how a user would be using it would not change. And I don't think anybody is depending on this behavior of setting a different provider and trying to log in somewhere else.
But don't you think that could somebody like, because is the provider field mandatory in OCI repository?
If you're doing contextual login, if you're depending on that login package, then yes, you have to provide it.
The provider field is mandatory. You have to specify it, right?
If you don't set it, it's generic login that expects a secret which has all the fields.
Then yeah, so how exactly do you use the detection logic? You don't specify a provider? Like what
No,
do you do?
you do provide a provider, but because of how it was built many years ago, at that time you didn't need provider field. It would just look at the address and figure out where to log in. It's kind of redundant now.
So but would it be possible for somebody to be using this logic and not specifying the provider field?
I
Would
don't
that
think so.
be, well, if that's not possible, then I guess we can safely remove it.
And I have to look at the code, but I believe
Yeah.
if you don't provide it, it becomes generic. And when it's generic, that code path is not called. That's what I think, but need to check the
Okay.
code. It should not be calling that code path.
Well, if that's the case, then I think it's safe to remove, right? I mean, I think it's only gonna be unsafe if there's a way for somebody to be using it, even if very unlikely. If it's possible, then we maybe have to be more careful, I guess.
We never had any RFC or anything to define it in written form that this is how we define it to be. So I think we can change it. So Git repository pull request is there, and the package Git changes are also there that are waiting for review. Dipti said this Wednesday. I think she's on a break for a week, and then we'll get back after middle of next week. So if we, I think she discussed in last meeting, right? She would be on some short break. So hopefully we'll be able to finish this. And based on my testing yesterday, even if in her absence, I think we can take it forward because it's working. And most of the things are present in the test pull request, the things we need, the details we need.
Cool. By the way, the pull request is waiting for the workflows to be approved and run. Can I hit the approve and run?
Which one? Which request?
The source controller pull request.
Which pull request or something? The
The one you sent, yeah, the one in the meeting doc, the sort like enable Azure OIDC for Git repositories.
It depends on the change. So I think it's dangerous to not check what's in the branch and approve it. check if everything is fine in the branch and then approve it to run in RCI.
I don't think
So,
there's anything malicious here.
so that's still, you can have a look at it, then everything looks fine, then approve it. I guess.
Yeah, it does look fine. Yeah.
We can click it and it will go through some linting checks. Uh, I
Is
think that's
Dipti
it.
from Microsoft? Does she work at
Mhm.
Microsoft? Mm, cool. I was wondering if she could help us with the with
Maybe, yes.
the having a way to test. Maybe,
Maybe
The
next week.
number
yeah.
We
number of
can.
different contacts we have at Microsoft, you think we would be able to get a test account?
Yeah.
You know, all the different. It's really amazing how many different things Microsoft is involved in, like Headlamp, and seems like none of them talk to each other sometimes.
Mhm.
Next topic.
Hey guys, yeah, this one's from myself. Um, yeah, it's really about answering these additional Terraform provider issues because they seem to be related a little bit to the internals of Flux, which I obviously don't know a great deal about. So I'm kind of leaning on you guys to kind of help me with the best way to respond. And I want to make sure that we also respond and are both on the same page because a couple of times I've responded and it kind of doesn't align with what Stefan thought. Or Stefan has more information on how Flux actually works underneath the covers, and I didn't. So I just want to make sure that that we align on our responses back to these people. Um, the first one is the embedded manifests, and that kind of fails um, because of the way that we're passing the parameters to get the temp directory. I don't know if there's an obvious and easy way around this uh, when you're on Windows or not. Slash, if we've seen this somewhere else upstream in the Flux provider and we can just kind of leverage the same code.
Yeah, can you briefly describe what's happening?
Yeah, so if you look at the first request and you go right, the first issue, sorry, and go right the way to the bottom where it says additional context, that is definitely the line that's not working, which is when we put the double quotes as the first parameter
Hmm.
when we generate the absolute directory.
Hmm.
Uh, so he this guy has a workaround, obviously, to set temp to a folder in the same drive as the project, which it causes the command to apply successfully. But obviously, this feels like a little bit of a hack around the problem.
So this means, unlike in Linux or maybe Mac OS, there is a temp directory at the root. But
Yeah,
in Windows, you can set that directory with an environment variable. Is that right?
sorry,
Or
Sunny, you cut
you,
out.
you,
I don't know if you cut out for
you,
everybody.
you can set that directory using a Windows environment variable. Is that
Yeah, you
right?
can.
Um, in that case, maybe we should look into this function mkdir temp apps in Go. What does the underlying Go implementation expects? So if the user sets this environment variable, it just works automatically. Is that true? Do you know?
Yeah, the workaround was to set it to a folder on the same drive as the project.
No, if they don't change the code, but just set the environment variable and run this, does it just work?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said he set an environment variable of what TMP was. He said it's a v/temp and then it worked.
So it sounds like it may not be really a bug. Maybe we need to call some Windows API, which will tell us what's the current temp direct what drive that temp drive in the host.
Yeah.
But I think it's not a major bug if you have some unconventional setup where your temp is somewhere else instead of C drive.
Yeah, I just didn't, I was unsure if we'd already fixed this problem upstream in the actual Flux CLI. That's what I was trying to find.
If this is the line where it's happening, it's in the provider, then I think you can fix it in the provider itself. I'm guessing I did not check the line of code, like around the
Yeah,
code around it.
it's definitely done in the provider. I just didn't know if we had something similar in the Flux CLI when it generates its manifests that handles this situation, and we could just essentially leverage the same code.
Okay.
That's what I was unsure about.
Okay. I'm not I'm not familiar with that, so I cannot say it has, but I've never heard this being discussed anytime in the last 3 years. So I would expect no. But then if you fix it in the provider itself, I'm guessing maybe the Flux CLI code may also have similar code where it tries to create a temporary directory. Maybe that should also change.
Yeah,
And
that's what I'm trying to find out. I was trying to work out where in the Flux code that is likely to occur so that I could make sure
and
that
maybe this should be a it should be a project-wide change wherever we have tools running on different operating systems. We should take this into consideration in CLI and Terraform provider. Do we
yes,
have anything else?
yeah, agreed. I just didn't know if you knew or anyone of the maintainers that were working closer to the Flux CLI knew if we had something like this. Um,
I
I'm
would
not sure if we use temp files throughout the rest of the code base. I'm not really super familiar with the code base, but and I don't want to stunt the discussion if it is going somewhere. But if I did my best Stefan impression, I think I would say use WSL. We don't want to start adding weird special cases for Windows all over the code base because every other operating system has a root in the file system.
Agreed, yeah. I don't want to do that, but I guess what I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me if this Flux CLI has something similar to this because it would need to, I would assume, create a temporary directory to be able to then push those changes to the Git repository. What I was trying to work out is where in the code base that type of flow happens so that I've got my eyes in the right place. Otherwise, I'm just trying to read the whole CLI and it's not.
uh, if you open the CLI Flux repository and do a search for MPDIRTMP, I see it many files there are calls for this temporary directory creation. Some are in Bootstrap, some are in Git repository creation and source creation. So I think this needs to be considered for all these as well if we are addressing it for Windows specifically. And
Where
my guess is uh, upstream Go may have something for handling this. Maybe we need to look into that. What you're about to say?
I'll ping you offline about it. That's okay. Um,
Um, okay, I'll do a search about how the language itself tries to handle this. I would expect it to have some mechanism.
yeah,
Okay.
the we can probably skip the 708 and go to the 713. So I posted in the maintainers chat my proposed response back. Um, I'll add it. Hopefully this works. Let me try this a second. If you guys click the link that I posted in the Google Doc, it should hopefully take you to what I was going to reply. Because we essentially have this problem whereby if you perform an initial Flux bootstrap using the Flux bootstrap provider, and then you come and modify the customization override, it can end up getting itself in a bit of a mess, specifically when you make large changes, such as like what this guy's done, which is he's done an initial bootstrap and then changed the namespace in which the Flux customization works. So what I was going to propose to him to do is once he's completed the bootstrap to not make like breaking changes to the customization secondarily, because it's kind of doing a three-way diff between what we've got in the cluster, what you've got locally, and also what you've got in Terraform state.
I'm reading your response and to understand what's happening. So are they moving the Flux objects to a different namespace after Bootstrap?
That's what to me it sounds like he's doing, yeah. Because I was looking up about and he in the PR. So in the PR, the customization is created successfully. And if you look, not the PR, sorry, the issue, it's in the Flux system namespace. The Git repository resource is also in the Flux system namespace. And then below, what they're trying to do is change. Where is it? They're trying to patch the name of the resources to mono. So they essentially, the name of the resources start off as Flux system, and then they want to change the Git repository and also the initial Flux system customization to mono as well. And then what happens is the bootstrap essentially fails because it's saying that the initial Git repository is no longer found because obviously it's changed. So what I was planning to do is I was planning to do something similar, just using Flux and not using the bootstrapper and essentially see what happens.
It seems to me maybe this is how Terraform works. If you
Yeah, the error that we're getting is a Flux error. It's not a Terraform provider error because it's the error while waiting for Git repository to be ready is the thing that's failing because the Git repository called Flux system is not found. But it's because the Git repository called Flux system no longer exists because he's changed it from Flux system to mono.
I think some Terraform providers have a mechanism of deleting and recreating things instead of updating. Like if you change something in maybe EC2, some properties, if you change it or some attributes, you have to delete the whole machine and recreate it. It sounds similar to that use case. In this case, you have to uninstall everything and reinstall everything to change such things.
Yeah, if we see changes to any of the initial objects, we could potentially delete them from the setup, from the state, sorry, the Terraform state. My only worry with that is when you're doing a diff, to make sure that, because if we delete, like, say, object A before object B has been created, Terraform state would think that the diff is B when actually it's still A. And then you can get yourself in quite a mess. So I'll keep doing some digging and work out a proposal for the best way forward, because I think stuff like this is going to continually happen. Because as soon as you make changes to the initial bootstrap configuration is when we have this three-way diff problem that Stefan and I were talking about. But yeah, I'll continue to do some digging. I'll report back next week.
Okay.
That's it from me.
Still thinking about it. I'll read and see if I have any more ideas about this. What else? Any other topic?
Not from my side.
Oh,
Hey,
last
sorry.
week. Oh,
Sorry, this is Luis. Just have a quick question. Can I also ask Flagger questions slash topics in here, or is it specifically for Flux?
we can. I
Um,
can.
mhm.
Kindred can. Have you used Flagger? I have not used Flagger.
Yeah, we can do our best to answer. At the very least, you'll get on the recording, and then we can point someone who knows better at the question. But
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I think it might be either Stefan or Sanskar. I think they're the main maintainers of the repo. But basically, we found a bug around how virtual services get created for A/B testing, and we have a PR essentially waiting for review on the repo. So we basically wanted to see, what was the process for getting some eyes on that PR. That was really all I got.
For that, when did you create a pull request?
It's been a while, I'm not in front of my computer right now, but it's probably been about a month since I created it. And I tagged Stefan and Sanskar, I believe, on that PR, and I was looking at the Flagger channel on the CNCF workspace, and I saw other users having the same issue. And it's a bit of a critical bug because it can really affect how traffic gets routed. So that's why we just wanted to follow up on that.
I found the issue. Luis R. Escobar, right?
Yep, that's me. Yeah, exactly. I put a very detailed description as much as I could, for what exactly the problem is. And what I'm suggesting as will be part of the fix. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I don't think anybody has commented on it or anything like that. So I just wanted to, again, just do a quick follow-up.
I cannot say anything, but I think people are busy in other things, so maybe a lot of pull requests are not getting attention.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe you can join our next week's meeting if you can, or I'll try to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that works.
Or
Yeah,
there is a possibility that in the next few weeks we will be focusing on a release, so maybe it will not get attention. There is a possibility, but I'll try to bring this up next week.
Okay.
I'll add it
No,
in
that's
the meeting document.
sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Stefan is usually here. He let us know in advance for this meeting he wasn't going to be able to make it. So
Got it. Yeah, no worries. If anything, I'll join next week, and hopefully we can follow up on this topic.
Okay. We are out of time, but I wanted to discuss one small thing. uh, Last week, Stefan showed that there is a discussion number 4946 in Flux2 repository. 4946. Somebody reported that they're using image automation and they deleted a git tag and they say image automation writes the git tag again or pushes the git tag again in the repository. I did investigate. I tried to reproduce it. I could not reproduce it. And knowing what image automation does, I don't think it's possible. So we don't keep a state of Git repository in our controllers. Every time reconciliation runs, we do a fresh clone in a separate directory, and then that directory gets deleted. It's a temporary directory. So there is no possibility of Flux retaining some old Git tags and pushing it even after they delete it. Whenever it clones it, it clones what's in the remote Git repository. If tag is not there, there's no way we will create it again. So I left a comment, didn't hear anything from them after that. But theoretically, I don't think it's possible. Kingdom, have you seen that?
Yeah, I haven't tried to test myself, but I understand your explanation, and I know that we had this discussion last week. This would be a very serious bug if it was Flux's fault, but I agree. I don't see how it's possible given how things work.
And I was wondering, how can they say that it's being recreated by Flux? Maybe it's a user or some other automation. It must be some other automation in their environment.
I think I remember, actually, I remember having this issue with someone on my team who had a very old version of Git. If you run Git push a certain way,
Push everything. Look.
it pushes everything in the entire, yeah, like Git push dash dash all. At one point would push all tags, and if you had old tags that had been deleted in your repo, they would get pushed too. And I remember arguing with this person over, you have homebrew, you have to upgrade things periodically. It's not that you aren't upgrading things often enough. It's that you have never run upgrade, and that you have dangerously old versions of things. Maybe I can find that old version of Git because I do remember this issue on an old team that I was on. And the solution was to run brew upgrade just once ever.
Or maybe change the command that you run. Pass some flags or arguments that's specific to the branch you're trying to push. Okay. Anything else? No?
No, I don't think so.
And end the meeting?
Okay.